And welcome to the Daily Space Weather, folks. We're streaming live to Twitch. It's twitch.tv/smAsho because we like the platform so much. And we're starting out your daily coverage looking at the sun in 171 angstroms. Yeah, we're going to do a compressed format. Here's a 48-hour view from the SDO. We're going to shorten things up because we're coming at you so late today. Next thing we're going to look at is HelioViewer. And we're going to look at the fields. There you have the fields. And we don't see any sunspots. We see some filamentary behavior down here in the southeast portion. And we're not showing you any custom videos today, but if you want to watch some custom videos, don't forget to head to youtube.com/smAshomash and bitchute.com/smAshomash. Press subscribe. Thank you to our new subscribers. And look for exclusive content in all of these locations. And let's talk about a comment that we got on BitChute. It's on the latest Diamond Anvil video, episode 4. Symbiotic pairing, Robitaille, and Cygnus X3. The comment is, #NCon-Job19, you've lost. To which we recently responded only 5 minutes ago. Lost what? When we haven't even begun to mobilize power. Let's talk about number 4 of the smAsho mission, which you can read about by yourself if you head to smashomash.com/forum/mission. Number 4 is to demonstrate cutting-edge proof of concept solutions to problems. Let's talk about one of them, but not in great depth. One of them is holding the government accountable for their overreach. So check us out at instagram.com/smashomash also before we move on. So press pause, and we'll let this play about 3 times. So you can view what the local star, which is the Rosetta Stone of cosmology, is up to right now in 304 angstroms. The UV emission spectra of ionized helium. So anyway, there's that stuff. And let's get back to talking like a character from a video game. KP index is currently at 1. And we've got this middle finger sort of a style on the graph here. Please leave a comment if you've got some middle fingers to raise against some folks. And don't do it, folks. Don't do it. It's possible to love somebody while also disliking them. 10.7 centimeter radial flux is still at 69 solar flux units. And there's the graph, kind of. I mean, there's a 70 line, which would be right about here, and you're still basically at solar minimum radial flux conditions. Let's look at where things are located in the solar system. And now you can see this very, very spooky triangle forming in this region right here. I mean, it's very scary. It goes all the way from Saturn to the Earth right now. And so we could have additional reptilian signals headed to the moon to be transmitted to your soul to cast it into the river Styx or something like that. Anyway, here's where we expect things to be in a week as we approach another full moon. And you prepare yourself to have worse sleep because it'll be too bright at night for some COVIDiots to sleep because they won't have their windows blackened out and so on and so forth. Here's where stuff is above my head, and we are streaming live here at nearly 7 a.m. Holy cripes! It's light out, and the sun has already risen where I'm located, right in line with Mercury, as Mars and Jupiter and Saturn all show up on near the ecliptic before sunrise. And let's talk about cosmology very quickly, as there is always some interesting stuff to go on with cosmology, and not not coronology. And yeah, let's talk about cosmology, as there are enduring issues with cosmology. And now, yesterday we talked about cosmic rays and reported some data about cosmic rays, some current data, basically in real time. Also, we reported on some information in basically real time about X-ray transients. And we watch this stuff because, well, space might be weirder than you think. Now, one of the channels that we've recently subscribed to, showing a video about debunking the electric universe, is Professor Dave Explains. So now, we got a little bit convoluted here, and let's just say that the comments section rapidly devolved, and it has to do with how badly YouTube software is written. But again, we definitely invite Professor Dave Explains to have a convo about cosmology and all sorts of things that are and aren't observationally real in space. Fortunately, it didn't get too ugly. It got too ugly, but fortunately, Professor Dave deleted my comments because, again, it escalated in an unnecessary fashion. Now, here's the video that he recently put up just on May 1st. And I'm just going to play a little clip. And just to tie this into a cosmology segment, I would just remind people that there are repulsive forces in space as well as attractive ones. And here's a clip.
Of electrical charge. It doesn't take much knowledge of physics to see that this force is the winner. Stars and planets form by the accumulation of matter by gravity.
And let's just not expand on that at all today. That's for a cosmology segment. Again, Professor Dave Explains. We invite you to have a convo. We won't act like COVIDiots. During the convo, we'll try to cite real science. Now, here's an article on phys.org, also from May 1st. How could an explosive Big Bang be the birth of our universe? Well, I don't know, but if you want to read the article, feel free. I won't comment on whether it's a sharticle or not. And by the way, again, yesterday we did talk about this a little bit, the emanation point of the jet of M87, which does show Markland convection, just not on an intergalactic scale, most likely. And we've got various different resolutions. You can tell we're looking at different images from different scopes here. And I don't want to get too in-depth into the cosmology today because we're shortening the video on purpose because there's more content to come later. So the X-ray flux has diminished as we forecasted yesterday. The proton flux is still flatlined, no surprises there. Next, we'll look at the real-time solar wind. And the real-time solar wind is showing us a recently shifting phi angle, a fairly steady BTBZ in the top pane, and a 6.47 proton per cubic centimeter solar wind density, solar wind speed at straight up solar minimum levels, 311. 311! And that's kilometers per second, which is quite fast, but quite diffuse in terms of gas diffusion in places like Earth. Next, we'll look at the geospace magnetosphere movies, courtesy University of Michigan. And everything's quite steady. Geospace is looking pretty weak, as there is very little induction associated with incoming protons on the Earth's field. And let's move on to someplace closer to home, the ground magnetic perturbations. And there you can see what's going on with that. Not a lot, although we are living a geomagnetic excursion where we've got a North Pole up here, and a North Pole up here, and a net pole up here in the north, and a South Pole creeping into the Indian Ocean, indeed off the Antarctican continent. If you weren't aware, we're more than happy to inform you and then show you even more data. Here are the GOES magnetometers, which are in space around the F2 ionosphere layer, or as close as they could possibly get. And we continue to see very spiky instead of smooth. Normally we would see smooth around midnight, like this kind of a graph. And we see those spiky aspects of the graph there because we've got plasma incongruities. So you see, basically that graph is in some ways inversely proportional to this one. And I'm not just trying to draw a facetious image of the sun here, folks, but that really is the way that plasma lines up there. And don't think plasma's magic, folks. Plasma cosmology is real. Plasma's not magic. This data is 1 hour and 23 minutes old. And just keep in mind the magnetic environment can change with absolutely no warning. Here's a line of sight field plot showing you the B field in blue, which is the field that goes through a magnet. And nothing to write home about there. No major perturbations in that or much of anything else. Surprisingly low electron flux levels. There's the greater than 2 mega electron volts. Here's the total electron content forecast. And exceedingly low levels. Probably the indication that we're going to see an extra strong electron storm. And I've got theories on it. I'm not going to cover them in today's daily space weather. Here's the GOES electron flux. Again, this is measured near the F2 layer. And let's move on to look at the F2, as well as the F1 through the F14 layer. So here you can see the ionosphere, and it is all over the place. Very wobbly, very discharged at nighttime, and a lot of sort of spillover from shell to shell. And I'm hearing strange noises emanating. Hopefully it's not a breakdown. By the way, if you're viewing live, please leave a comment. And if you're viewing Memorex, please leave a comment. And let's move on. Actually, let's show the latest image and then move on. There's a latest image, and it is very, very anomalous there at the current moment that we made the video, which again, we're streaming at 7:05 a.m. One of the latest videos we've made in a long time. Next, we're looking at windy.com's pressure maps as I vanish into thin air and let this advance via the GFS forecast. As we let this advance into tomorrow, up until about 12 noon Eastern Daylight Time, which is where I live. There's 1300 Eastern Daylight Time. Pressure cells are pretty much not noteworthy. Next, we're going to look at earthquakes over the past 24, and let me hit refresh and make sure we've got the fresh data as we see a bunch of quakes, starting out with a Puerto Rican quake at a 5.4 magnitude. It came in at 11:13 yesterday, and let's scroll up the list, noting any other significant quakes. And if you're wondering about the largest quake of the past 24, it's the 6.6 at Greece. And if you're wondering, the first rule of being Batman is you don't talk about being Batman. Anyway, I don't see any indication of tsunamis. There's a bunch of aftershocks, so let's cruise up the list to find a deep quake at Dominica. It's a 4.4 magnitude at 144 kilometers depth. And continuing up the list, a deep quake at Japan as a 2-day deep quake event continues. Here's a 5.7 at Peru. That one's at 198.4 kilometers. Heads up to Western South America. Deep quakes, large quakes at the surface are expected there, as we've seen months and months of deep quakes. 4.9 at New Zealand, another deep quake. So it's a big time deep quake event here over the past 2 days. Let's move on to more stuff, such as volcanoes. We see Mount Aso erupting, producing a 5,000-foot plume. Sakurajima flight level 9,000 there. Semaru, flight level 13,000 there. Dacono, flight level 7,000 there. It seems like a pilot's minefield. Popocatépetl, exploding, 21,000-foot ash plume there. Please do not suck volcanic ash into your jets. It may kill you and your passengers and your crew. Sabancaya, also exploding. Flight level 28,000 there. And while we're unable to detect if volcanic ash emanates from Nevados de Chilean, please do not attempt a pole vault to Caldera. And we've moved on to the... Oh no, it's so scary. Oh no. Oh, what's going on? Anyway, one of the ways to destroy these things is to sear it with sunlight. It only lasts about 5 minutes at room temperature in sunlight. So for all those COVIDiots out there closing beaches, I wish you luck. And speaking of COVIDiots, the core of COVIDiocy in Pennsylvania is the governor's mansion. Not only should we recall the governor's ineffective measures, we should recall the governor entirely. As we shut down this nonsense, we should shut down his office. In a second petition, recall Governor Tom Wolf. We'll talk about this more later on the Diamond Anvil. His plutocratic corporatocracy is the only non-essential business in PA. Government is the business that isn't essential. You are essential. The government works for you, not vice versa. And let's vanish and look at the jet streams of the eastern world, where they're doubled up and tripled up and quadrupled up and blowing hot air into the geographic North Pole and making people think that the Earth's so hot that it's cold, and doubled up with a major split here in the south. Check it out. Major splits. Everybody's going to freak out about it's so hot that it's cold. I mean, it's so cold that it's hot, and vice versa. And we got the extreme meridional jet stream flow. Check out that snake making its way to the east. It's headed toward the sun, folks, and I'm not going to tell you why, because it's a daily space weather video, not a cosmology segment. So let's move on to more data, such as the water vapor maps for Europe and Africa. Here are the water vapor maps for Asia and Australia, the Far East and Oceania. Here is the lightning map for the whole planet. We've got some extreme lightning coming down here in Eastern Europe. Check it out. Now, we have a goldfish who's literally Hitler, and we're going to make a video about Phelps, whether or not he invaded Lithuania. Next, looking at the U.S. Doppler radar map to see some storms skimming across the southern border of Pennsylvania, some diffuse rain and snow in places like eastern Washington and western Washington and northwestern Oregon. I don't know what direction is what. And we see some heavy storms kicking up suddenly over Kansas. Please leave a comment if you find that there's a tornado and you're not in Kansas anymore. We hope you're doing okay. Next, look at the U.S. water vapor map, and we are going to check out that sudden area of cloud nucleation, and you can see this huge pressure differential forming right here. A great location for our daily weather pornography section. And check out the sudden cloud nucleation there. You're seeing major pressure coming down, forming a high pressure, and major pressure coming up, forming a low pressure. Remember, folks, dry air is much more massive than moist air. And so while it's rational to follow low pressure systems because they are involved with things like precipitation, high pressure systems are just as important in terms of the real atmospheric physical inputs. And thanks SMASH team for tuning in to the shortened and ultra-late video. We appreciate your input. Stay tuned for another episode 5 of the Diamond Anvil today. Have you seen episode 4? Well, episode 5 is coming out today, and that's part of the reason why we shortened today's daily space weather video. Thanks to our subscribe stars and to our patrons, the true source of funding for the content. Thanks whether you're an intro or a gold member for your continued support. And next we're looking at the local yellow dwarf here in intensitygram to show you that there are 0 sunspots. So here's the southern portion, and you can see no dark ombre there. Here is the equatorial portion. No dark ombre there either. And last but not least, here is the northern portion, and no ombre there, no sunspots. We do have some field organization. Here's a scenario with that. By the way, that is cycle 25 all day, based on both the polarity and the latitude. That's South Pole, that's North Pole. Something to keep an eye on there. And when I say eye on, the pun is intentional. Sunspot 2760 has degraded to a plage since early yesterday and is no longer a sunspot and is setting in the west. And that's about all she wrote. Let's take one more view here of the local yellow dwarf in 94 angstroms. It takes 10 images per minute instead of only 2, like all the other wavelengths except for 131 angstroms. It's designed specifically to view sunspots and solar flares. So check it out. It's my graduating class, 1994, 94 angstroms. Anyway, we are out. And by the way, thanks for tuning in, Panny9. And thanks for not being afraid of the sun. It's a lot less spooky than a lot of folks might have you think. So anyway, please don't forget to stare at the sun. It's the Rosetta Stone of cosmology. When you do so, don't drink, and if you do, don't drive. Certainly don't drive. It's Sunday. For goodness sakes, there's going to be Sunday drivers out there, and they will be blocking you on purpose, looking in their rear view, wondering why you're so angry. And since it'll never be now again, welcome to the Neo-Renaissance. And may that solar wind be at your back and the covidiously absent from your galaxy.